Okay, so in this video we are going to draw our perfect cube in 2-point perspective with a ground grid. So I'm starting out with a couple of graphite pencils. One, I've got an H, or you can use a 2H, and then I've got a B, a little bit softer pencil. You can use a 2B, whatever you want, but I want you to start getting used to varying the pencil that you use. So those of you that like using a number 2 pencil only or mechanical pencil only, I'm going to ask you to go back to your materials list, and I want you to be using different pencils, okay? I've also got a light blue colored pencil and a red colored pencil. I'm going to start by laying in my horizon line, and I'm going to use my B pencil for that, and I'm going to put my horizon line for this drawing at about 10 inches above the bottom of the page. So I don't want to make this line super dark. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to lay that pencil down, and with a light hand I'm going to just drag the pencil across the page. So I'm letting the graphite of the pencil make the mark. I'm not pushing down on the pencil at this point. So I should have a clear line for my horizon line, but not something that I'm unable to erase. All right. So on this, for this drawing, I'm going to start with a mark midway along the horizon line, and I'm going to make a vertical line there, and I'm going to place my station point at, I'm going to say 9 inches from the horizon line. So now if you go back to what the station point refers to, station point is here. I'm going to indicate the station point with a red mark on my page. All right, so I'm aware that that's one of my important points. So my station point is here, and if you remember, the station point indicates where my feet are. And if you remember also, we've talked a lot about the horizon line and the level of the horizon line. The level of the horizon line is my eye line, right? It's at eye level. So the station point represents my feet, and the horizon line represents where my eyes are. So essentially this is my height, okay? So these are my feet, this is my eye line. All right, now I'm going to establish over here on the right, my right vanishing point, and that can be at an arbitrary point for these purposes. My right vanishing point is here. Then I'm going to draw a line from the right vanishing point to the station point. Now, on your drawings, I would use your harder pencil and a very light line. Okay, so there's my line to the right vanishing point. Now we've got to locate the left vanishing point. So we're drawing a perfect cube. So remember what it is that is special about a perfect cube is that every corner of every plane of that cube is a 90-degree angle. So it's a right angle. So what we've got to do is we've got to calculate where that right angle square is from the station point, because we're drawing a cube. So to do that, you can use one of two methods. You can use your triangle. Oop, that one's broken. You can use your triangle, or you can use a protractor. And I'll show you both of those methods. So to use the triangle, what I would do is I would take one edge, this is a right angle here. I would take one edge of the triangle, I would line the corner up with my station point, and I would put one edge exactly along that line that goes to the right vanishing point. Then I'm going to make a mark here out along the edge somewhere. I'm not just going to trace that edge, I'm going to make a mark out along that edge, and then I'm going to use my straight edge to make a line from the station point through that mark I just made up to the horizon line. And that's going to give me my left vanishing point. Okay. So, the next measuring point that we need to find is we need to find the 45-degree vanishing point. So what the 45-degree vanishing point, remember that we're working on a cube, so all of our angles are 90 degrees. We need to find half of that 90-degree angle. Okay, so that's going to help us find the position of the back edge of the square in perspective, because everything is working off of 90 degrees. If we're looking straight down at a square, then those corners are going to be 90 degrees. But as it moves up and back in space and we draw it in perspective, those angles are going to change. So in order to find the 45-degree vanishing point, I'm going to take that protractor again, and I'm going to put, you've got the center point here of the base of the protractor, and you've got a straight line that goes along the base. So I've got that center point on my station point. I've got one baseline lined up with one orthogonal to the vanishing point, and the other is sitting right at 90 degrees. So then I'm going to find the 45-degree angle. So I'm going to come over where it's marked from 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to make a mark at 45 degrees. And what that's going to do is that's going to split that 90-degree angle in half. So I'm going to go from the station point through that mark I've just made, and I'm going to make a mark on the horizon line, and that is my 45-degree vanishing point right there. Okay, that's a very important point. I'm going to make it red. Then we have to find two other measuring points. So we're going to find the left and right measuring points. So I need to find the length of this line from the station point to the left vanishing point. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to find what that length is, and on my drawing that I've done today it is 11.5 inches. So then I'm just going to rotate that line up to the horizon line, and I'm going to make a mark at 11.5 inches. Okay, that is my right measuring point. Now, nothing is receding to that measuring point. It is simply there to help us measure angles. All right, we're still, everything is receding to the left and right vanishing point. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the right side. And on this drawing, your measurements might be different, so don't just replicate what I'm doing here. On my drawing, The distance from the station point to the right vanishing point is 14.5. So I'm going to rotate that 14.5 up along the horizon line, and that's going to give me my left measuring point. If you remember, last week, this is the step that I left out. Your drawing will never be correct if you leave out that step. I'm going to find a point where I want the front corner of my cube to be. I would not put it way up at the top close to the horizon line. I would go, it needs to be within your cone of vision. Now, I've got my cone of vision is lightly indicated here. I know I want that cube to be inside the cone of vision. If it's outside the cone of vision, it's going to be very, very distorted. So I'm going to pick a point, and I'm going to say make it right here for the front corner of my cube. The front bottom corner of my cube. All right. So now I'm going to go from that front corner to the right vanishing point, and from that front corner to the left vanishing point. So this is going to give me the front edge of my cube. Make that a little darker so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, now for the purposes of this imaginary cube, I'm going to find a point where I want the back of that left face of my cube to be. Doesn't matter what that is. I would make it big enough. I wouldn't go really close here because I want my cube to be a decent size. So I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to draw a line from there to the right measuring point, vanishing point, sorry. Okay, so this is going to give me the bottom plane that the bottom of my cube is going to sit in. So now we've got to figure out where is the back corner of this cube. And remember, I'm working with a 90-degree angle. This is a 90-degree angle drawn in perspective. So we've got to find this back 90-degree angle drawn in perspective. So we've already found our 45-degree vanishing point that splits the angle, that 90-degree angle, in half. So if I draw a line from my front corner to the 45-degree vanishing point, this line now splits my 45-degree angle in half. Now, it doesn't appear that way the way that it's drawn, but because it's in perspective, this is going to be correct. So here, where these two lines intersect, that is now the back corner of my cube, my square. That's the base of my cube. So I'm going to draw a line from my left vanishing point through that point until it hits the line of the front of my cube. So that gives me the perfect square that is now the base of my cube. So now we have our perfect square with our 90-degree corners drawn in perspective. What we don't know now is how tall to make the front edge of our cube. And remember, because it's drawn in perspective, we can't just measure one of the sides and transpose it here, because drawn in perspective, these two edges while we know that they are the same length, they don't appear to be the same length as drawn. So we've got to use one of our measuring points to find the height of the cube. So I'm going to take my straight edge and I'm going to go from the right measuring point through the left corner of the square. So with my hard pencil, my H or 2H pencil, I'm going to lightly draw a line that will extend far enough to be at the same height on the page as the front corner of my square. And I'm going to lightly draw a line, a horizontal line. It must be horizontal. Then I'm going to measure the length of that line. So as drawn, it's 5 7/8 inches. And I'm going to rotate that height and I'm going to draw a vertical line from the front corner of my square that is that same height that we just measured. Now it's going to seem very tall, very long compared to the lengths of the two sides. Don't let that alarm you. So from the top of that line, I'm now going to go to the left and right vanishing points. And that's going to give me the top of my cube. Then from the left and right corner, I'm going to draw a vertical line within that wedge of the left and right plane of my cube. And that will give me the height of the sides. So I want to make sure that it's vertical. And it's coming right off the corner of my base square. So there I have, I'm going to reinforce the edges of my cube so they're nice and visible. And I want to work hard to get pretty exact on those corners, because if you're off a little bit, it can throw the appearance of your cube. So there I have a perfect cube drawn in 2-point perspective. So now I want to draw my ground grid. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the 45-degree vanishing point. I'm not using my right measuring point any longer, so I'm just going to take that line that gave me the length of my front edge. I'm just going to take that out. I don't need that anymore, and I don't want it to confuse my drawing of the ground grid. Use my big fluffy brush to wipe the eraser crumbs off my page. That's a really nice thing to have, just a super fluffy brush that can help you keep your drawing clean. Alright, so for my ground grid, I'm going to continue to use this line from the 45-degree measuring point to the front corner of my cube, and I'm going to add a line, a measuring line, from the 45-degree vanishing point to the left corner of my cube. So when I put this second line in there from the 45-degree measuring point to the left corner, and that's a little bit off, I'm going to correct that line. I want it to go exactly to the corner. Okay. So that's created a new intersection between the orthogonal to the vanishing point, the left vanishing point, and to the 45-degree vanishing point. Okay. So I have this new intersection where these two lines have come together. Now it's on the left side of my page. I've already drawn a line through these two new measuring lines from the left vanishing point. So I'm going to go to the right vanishing point. And I'm going to go through that new intersection. Again, being careful to be really exact. I'm going to take that all the way across. Make that a little more visible. Okay. So when I did that, I've created a new intersection between that front measuring line to the 45-degree vanishing point and this new orthogonal line. So now I'm going to go back to the left vanishing point, and I'm going to go through that intersection with a new orthogonal line. And that creates a new intersection on the top measuring line to the 45-degree vanishing point and this orthogonal. So now I'm going to go back to the right vanishing point, and I'm going to go through that intersection all the way across, which creates a new intersection on the right measuring line. Now I have to keep going back to my pencil sharpener. It's really important. I don't want that, because colored pencils are softer, I'm going to need to continue to sharpen this pencil as I complete the ground grid. So how this works is these new intersections alternate between left and right measuring line, and they walk up that wedge towards the 45-degree vanishing point. Because what we're doing, just like we created a 90-degree square, that is the base of our cube, that's essentially what we're doing over and over again, is we're creating new 90-degree squares as we go back in space. And so it's just a matter of alternating, whoops, the left and right line, walking back along that wedge. You do want to make sure that that pencil stays sharp. That's how you're going to be exact about where your lines are going to go. This is an exceptionally soft colored pencil, so it's going to be about an inch long before I'm finished with this drawing. Alright, so now there's our new intersection, and it's like magic that each time you draw an orthogonal, it's going to create another intersection for an orthogonal going the opposite way. As you get closer to the horizon line, these lines are going to get closer and closer together. There will come a point that you will stop because they will be so close together. So if I want to continue this ground grid coming forward, I'm going to go continue these two first orthogonals that I made when drawing the square for the bottom of the grid. I'm going to do that on both sides. The ruler wants to wiggle a little bit. I'm going to make sure that it is exactly where I want it to be. So then I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. If your ruler moves when you put the pencil against it and draw a line, I would go back and draw that line again. As mine just did. Okay, so I can probably go one more if I follow that 45-degree measuring line. I've got one more intersection here, but it's outside of the cone of vision, so this is going to be start to get really distorted. This is our ground grid for our perfect cube. Complete. Okay, so this is what I'm looking for the first drawing.